So now we're going to talk about product liability law. And I always think about the first time that I heard the term liability. I must have been 7 or 8, I can't remember. And I used to do this summer camp where we'd all go on sailboats out into the harbor for the day. And I remember there were some very bad little boys who were deciding to see if they could flip over the sailboat by going to the edge and jumping and rocking the boat. And turned out when all the boys got on the side of the boat, and I guess the wind had whipped up in just a certain way and everything. Anyhow, long story short, whether the boys caused it or not, the sailboat managed to flip over and everybody went into the water. I mean, we all had life jackets on and everything. And I remember the next summer we didn't go out on the sailboat. And I asked one of the counselors why we didn't get to go sailing this year. And he looked at me and said, because it's an issue of liability. And I said, well, what's liability? He said, ask your parents. And so I always think of that story whenever I talk about liability. So let's talk a little bit about product liability. Product liability means, and it's part of the law of torts, that covers redress for injuries caused by defective products. Okay? So if a product is defective, then there may be some degree of product liability involved. And then we've got also what is known as a tort. No, that is not a dessert or a pastry. That is a private wrong committed by one person against another person or his or her property. Now, a corollary concept of torts and product liability is negligence. Negligence is a type of tort that involves either intentional or negligent action that causes injury. So intentional or accidental action that causes some sort of an injury. And of course, previously, there was a lot that stood in the way in terms of protecting customers under product liability law. There's that Latin expression, caveat emptor, or caveat. And caveat emptor means let the buyer beware. Meaning, when you buy something from a merchant, then you are responsible to make sure that that's a good product. That is not on the merchant, that is on you, the consumer. And furthermore, there was a very narrow interpretation of the Doctrine of Privity, which said that consumers could only sue the party that sold them the product. So let me write this one up. So the Doctrine of Privity says, let's say, for example, you buy a car from a dealership, like, I don't know, just as an example only, let's say you buy a Ford car from a Ford dealership. And you're driving down the road and the car, I don't know, the wheel falls off or it blows up or turns into a wall or something that obviously a car shouldn't do. Under the Doctrine of Privity, you could only sue the dealer that sold you the car, not Ford that manufactured it. So that also held up early stages of consumerism. Now, another term that you should be familiar with is warranty. And a warranty is a contract in which the seller agrees to the nature of a product. And we've got two kinds of warranty. We've got express and implied. So an express warranty is a warranty that is an explicit claim made by the manufacturer to the buyer. So for example, if you buy a car and it says, we guarantee this car will not break down within the first 50,000 miles and X, Y, and Z, it's all written down in a contract. You can look it up, you can see what it is, bam, you're good to go. An implied warranty is unwritten and is considered a common sense understanding arising out of a buyer's reasonable expectations. Now we use terms like common sense, unwritten, and reasonable, and this is how lawyers make all their money, because nobody really knows what any of that means. So for example, if I had a car, I would generally speaking expect a car to drive normally in a straightforward fashion and not, I don't know, if I was driving down the road, I wouldn't expect the wheels to fly off. I wouldn't expect the car to all of a sudden do a spin out and crash me into a wall or something like that, because that's common sense. That's not what cars are designed for. And so therefore, that would be an implied warranty. If the car did any of those things, then I could try to establish some sort of a liability against the manufacturer. Now, another key term that's interesting is a strict liability. And strict liability says that anyone who engages in dangerous activity is liable for damages to others, even if they're really taking time doing things under the utmost care. So for example, let's say you were in a circus and you were working with lions. Well, lion handling is an inherently dangerous activity. Even if you're extra careful and all of a sudden that lion breaks out of the cage and mauls a bunch of people, you would still be liable because lion handling is inherently dangerous. And the key to strict liability is that the injured person does not need to prove negligence to prevail in court. You don't need to prove that they were negligent when they're handling the lions. You were mauled, therefore they are liable. Under strict liability, the injured party must only prove that the manufacturer or the business owner had a product that was made in a defective condition that made it unreasonably dangerous to the user. The seller was in the business of selling such products, and you didn't change it from its original manufactured condition. Now, there are certain costs and benefits associated with the United States' very, very extensive legal system. And the legal system in the U.S. really makes it easy for plaintiffs to win large damage awards from product makers, and it's pretty much unique among developed countries. In fact, nowhere else in the world would you find such a favorable environment to the consumer. Now, the cost side is that it inflicts about $900 billion on society annually, or about 2.5% of our GDP. That's a huge cost. But there are good things associated with that. Dangerous products have been taken off the market, their sales have been restricted, or they've just been redesigned. And the threat of a lawsuit and the high liability of insurance costs means that companies regularly drop high-risk products. So I hope you've enjoyed this particular module. We've still got a few more modules left in this course. I hope you enjoy them, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next time.